One. Hi, I'm here with Lloyd Schwartz, and we're talking about this new anthology that he edited, The View from Somerville, an anthology of student poetry. Um, and Lloyd, for you, if you don't know, is the poet laureate of Somerville and a very distinguished scholar and poet himself. Um, but today we want to concentrate on, I've interviewed Lloyd many times, but today we want to concentrate on the young poets of Somerville. And so I was going to ask him, and these were all Somerville High School students, and I was going to ask him on that fateful day when you visited the poetry club at Somerville High School, run by teachers Theresa Dietrich and Amanda Out.
Dowdy, yeah.
What did you find? What was your reaction to the student poets?
Yeah. Well, I kind of fell in love with them. They were so enthusiastic. The students in the club really cared about poems. I think they read a couple of poems. This was a while ago. They read a couple of poems that impressed me, and it was just their enthusiasm. I mean, for young people to really care about poetry, kind of blows me away. I'm used to dealing with graduate students who are thinking about poetry as a profession, but these kids just they loved it, and they loved doing it, and they loved reading each other's work, and they loved being together, and they loved their teachers, and loved their club meetings. And then and that was just sort of, it was part of my what I felt was part of my job as the Somerville Poet Laureate, was to get to know the students and get them enthusiastic about poetry. But it took a long time for me to be able to meet them in person because of the pandemic. So this finally happened, and it was a very happy meeting. And then I guess a few months later, I actually visited Theresa Dietrich's poetry class. This was not the workshop; this was just the class, and that was great too. And the students were they were just so dear and enthusiastic
So
about.
you had these preconceived notions, but they were dashed when you went in there.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there were a whole bunch of things that I wanted to do that the pandemic really interfered with, and somehow they, by hook or crook, they kind of managed to get done. Um, I wanted to have a reading, either at the Armory or at the library, by a sort of large group of Somerville poets. And I mean, and there are terrific poets who live in Somerville, and I'm talking to one of them right now.
Thank you.
And 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 we couldn't do that because we couldn't have a live meeting. And then, as you may remember, uh, a lot of people were videotaped, and the tapes were sort of online, and we had posters of poems by Somerville poets all over the city. And that was very different from what I'd planned, but at least we were able to do something.
No,
Um,
if I remember from our previous conversations, your experience in literary organizations in high school and in college are probably instrumental for what you became today. Did you bring the sensibility to your work with these students?
Well, yeah, I hope so. I mean, I'm sure they could detect my own enthusiasm, and and it's true, Doug. You remember correctly. I fell in love with poetry when I was a senior in high school, and I had a great teacher who got who was very excited about poetry, and who made poetry sound both interesting and meaningful, but also exciting. And I thought, well, this is, yeah, I really want to get involved with this. And that was when I wrote my first poem.
And in
Um,
college, you were in the literary drama and the literary club, I remember. And
well, I
yeah.
was no, I was doing dramatic work in high school. And when I started college, I really, I actually thought I was going to become an actor.
Mhm.
And I went to the first meeting of the drama club, and I couldn't stand it. And I thought
Oh, they were all snobs, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. They were people who were so self-involved, and all of the dramatic work, the theater work that I had done when I was younger, everything was so cooperative. All the Everybody really, it was a team, everybody worked together. And I thought, I don't want to have anything to do with these people on their ego trips. So I joined the literary magazine instead of the drama club. And gee, the writers were so impressive, and I was just in awe of them, and they were all so nice and very welcoming. Um, so
I
so
was going to say that, it's great that you had this enthusiasm because I know, poets of our general generation, when they were in elementary school, they learned poetry by rote, and it wasn't, the poems were not really relevant at that for them at that time. They really had to, and
right.
I think this is a different experience for these kids. They may bring this into adulthood rather having this sort of negative feel to it.
I hope so. I hope so. But these teachers, these young teachers, are really wonderful, and they convey so much enthusiasm themselves and kind of passion. It's not just enthusiasm, but a real feeling for poetry, and a sense that if the that the kids are are if they can get that same sort of passion, that just as you say, it will stay with them for their whole life.
You
And
know, I and this one student we had a reading out at Endicott, and we had this poet, local poet Clem Schoenbeck, and man in his 80s, and
oh wow.
he said, one thing I could tell you that poetry has gotten me through hard times. It's one of the great things you can have. It's cheap, and it's always at your beck and call, and it's something
Right.
I just can't emphasize. And one student wrote to me that she was very touched by what Clem Schoenbach had to say, but it is true
Hmm.
that that is therapeutic, and can be many things.
Yeah.
The there was some great stuff that we probably wouldn't have think of. When one kid was writing a poem, and another, my friend really liked this phrase. He's trying to describe high school and use the word fart spray. Now that's inspired, I think.
I what one of the students in the anthology, yeah, is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah. He
Yeah,
used
yeah,
she or
yeah.
he used fart spray, which I thought was great.
It was great. Right, right. It was really very imaginative and vivid, very vivid. I think it was a poem about walking down
Yeah.
the corridors of Somerville High School. Uh, the kids asked me when I told them, when I visited the class, and by that time I knew that, I have to say I was able to do the anthology because of this grant that I got from the Academy of American Poets. And I was
Yes.
one of 23 regional poets laureate around the country to get a very substantial grant. And we were supposed to keep some of the money for ourselves, but we were also supposed to spend some of the money on projects. And I knew that the project that I wanted to use that money for was the anthology. And so that was my second visit to the school, when I was visiting the class. And the kids were saying, well, is it all right if I say, if I talk about potholes, or the bad food in the cafeteria, or whatever it was they were complaining about? I said, yeah, you could say anything in a poem, you
Which,
know?
which brings me to this question, because teacher Teresa Dietrich took inspiration from Elizabeth Acabato's novel and verse and Poet X, and the students, basically they said, you could write about your own life as perfect fodder for poetry. And I find that the novice poet, before, thinks they have to write about their soul being transported over Tibetan mountain or something like
Right.
that. And I've never been that kind of poet. I've never been to
Yeah,
Tibet,
no, no, me
but
either.
but you know, rather than you know, they can write about a scene in Union Square at a cafeteria, or something like that.
Right, a convenience
Yeah,
store.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's not, something so lofty that, and yeah.
yeah,
But I was gonna say, in Somerville, these kids, there was one kid who, Lou Basang Mehta, uh, and she wrote a poem called Somerville, and it's sort of like a microcosm of the world. It has the yin and yang, the excitement,
yeah.
the excitement and chaos, and then the depths of boredom, that very sort of manic energy that we knew as adolescents. I mean, I found that a very compelling poem.
Yeah. Oh, good, good. I mean, they're really, um, you know, some of these high school kids are really already on their way. I mean, they're in the poetry club, they're in an English class that in which they're learning poetry. But some of these kids, and some of the ones in the anthology, are really, you know, some of them have never written a poem before. And some of these kids are kids for whom English is a new language. English itself is a new language. So they're really, and I think that's great. I think they're really onto something. And I think some of them were very brave to submit their poems. And
Yeah, I mean,
and
and because you're very vulnerable, submitting
exactly,
poetry. Yeah, you're laying.
exactly.
I mean, if you're writing good poetry, poetry that makes you cut
Yeah,
yourself while you're shaving.
that's
It makes you
right.
right. You know,
Right. Yeah.
um, and so it's interesting also that the publisher, Savannah Barva Press, Gloria Mindock, was a poet laureate, and she's publishing this project, and you're a poet laureate. So it's all in the family.
Well, I wanted to keep it in Somerville, and Gloria was my predecessor as poet laureate of Somerville, and she has a really distinguished press. And I thought, she was the first person who came to mind as, possibly publishing this this book, and she was very excited about it. And and she did a great job. And there were, there were many sets of galleys, and we proofread them very
And
carefully. And
her partner, Bill Kell,
oh,
is
who was
instrumental in putting that stuff. Yeah.
who was really just great, and who really um, did, everything that I was asking for. And I also say I love the picture on the cover, and it's a picture of the mural on the side of the Winter Hill post office, and it's a picture of two contemporary people looking at an image of old Somerville on the top of Winter Hill. Yeah. And
And
the
the market
photograph,
basket is right behind there. Yeah.
the photograph was taken by Melissa Glenn Haber, who lives in Somerville and who was a former member of the Somerville Arts Council. And so we really, it's very much a Somerville publication.
It is.
And uh, and
Well, Lloyd, I'd like you to read a couple of poems that that you would choose from the anthology. There's so many good ones, I know. But
I would love to. I would love to do that. Um, and it's really hard to make a choice. But you know what I think I'm going to do, if that's okay with you? I think I'm going to read the first poem and the last poem
okay, whatever. Yeah,
in the anthology.
it's your ball
And
game.
I'm sorry?
It's your ball game. Go ahead.
Oh, all right, good.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm at bat.
Yeah.
So the first poem, and it's all alphabetical order. No one is singled out for how good their poem is. They're all equals in this book.
Wouldn't that be great if it was like that in the real world?
In real life, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is by Eliseo Fuentes Alvarez, or Alvarez, probably. Dear to my city. Somerville is no more but a small overpopulated city with no more space to expand, and the only solution is to put big condos, and it seems the only direction they seem to be expanding is to the sky and beyond. But you think it would stop there, but there is more. From the busy streetlights to the angry car drivers. You could mistake them for New Yorkers, and I wouldn't get mad at you if you made that assumption. To the trashy mall that most of it is closed off from the public due to more office space solely built for the tired men that work a 9 to 5 and need 10 shots of espresso just to function, with balding problems and have an existential crisis every other week. To seeing the complete polar opposite with their boss that makes 100,000 every other week and driving an expensive car only for the car to be stuck in traffic. Not going to lie, I do get a laugh when they start to get mad, saying, I have place to be. I have places to be. Newsflash. No one cares about you, boss man, or your stupid new car. But my opinions don't matter, or my point of view, and who cares what a sophomore has to say? Anyways, all I'm trying to say is, dear to my city, I hate you and thank you for making me how I am.
Wonderful.
I just love that.
Yeah. Existential crisis and balding problems. I can understand that.
Right. And I'm going to read, let me also read the last poem in the anthology, and it's by Ronisha Walton, and it's called Welcome to Medford Street.
You know, I wrote that in a review. She made Medford Street the high holy, a very
Yeah,
pedestrian street. Yeah.
I was so glad that you picked that out. And welcome to Medford Street. Welcome to Medford Street. Oh no, not the one near Magoon Square, the one that sits nicely on a hill, the one where lots of rats invade the ground, the one that fits in between construction after construction, the one that floats above the train tracks, the one that takes in the aroma of smoke. Welcome to Medford Street, where the loud bells of the high school ring throughout your ears, where there is only 3 buildings guarding the street. If this is your type of vibe, come on down to Medford Street, where the party never stops.
Yes, yes. I've named our press Ibbotson Street after a street I lived on, Ibbotson Street.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so often
That
they come
that very little, it's a kind of little dead end street off
right.
off Somerville Ave.
And there was a poet, I can't remember her name, Irish poet, who was here. She wrote a book called Ibbotson Street before I even started the press. It was
Oh,
the Garden Street Press. They put out some books by female
wow,
authors.
I didn't
Yeah,
know that. I
yeah.
didn't know that.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk about this wonderful anthology that can be bought on the from the Cervena Barva Press, and you can find them easily on the web, and also through the other places. But we, go right to the press.
I just heard that the Grolier Poetry Bookshop in Cambridge is going to have some copies there, and they're going to put a copy in the window.
What would be really nice is if you had a reading for the students who are involved in this.
That's in the works.
Oh, I assume that you would be.
That's in the works.
Right.
I don't have any information yet, but I agree with you. I really want that to happen.
Well, thank you again, Lloyd. Thank you for being on Poet to Poet, Writer to Writer.
And thank you, Doug. Thank you for really the great work you do on behalf of poetry for this whole community. And you're a very valued member of this community for all the work you do.
Thank you.